Hello everybody and welcome to a brand new show I've been working on for a while now, and that is Republic of Play News. Now the title is a little bit work in progress, as is the show itself. I'm going to do 4 pilot episodes, so every single Thursday we're going to have a news roundup show called Republic of Play News on this channel, just to deliver some consistency to the channel, because with game reviews and embargoes our schedule goes up and down and up and down. You never know when a video is going to hit, but at least this way every Thursday I can guarantee you that the Republic of Play News show is going to be there. Now what this show basically is, like I said, it's a news roundup, the hottest topics in gaming that past week, largely geared toward PC gaming, but we could do wider industry topics every now and then, do some predictions and maybe even some trailer reactions. As you can see, I'm off script, I'm unfiltered, I could say anything right now, and we'll see how this goes. If you like that, let me know in the comments below, and I would like to make this a little bit more of an interactive show, where I could read some of your comments out on the show, or some tweets, or some suggestions in our Discord, or wherever it may be. I'd like to have some input, like you guys to have some input on the actual stories themselves, as well as feedback about the show itself. Alright, without further delay, that's pretty much it. We're going to get straight into it. I thought it would be good to start off with the newest releases that's happened this week, and then we'll progress into some of the biggest stories. This has actually been a fairly light week for gaming news, which is an interesting one to start on, but I was just pretty excited and eagerly anticipating getting this going. So let's get straight into it. Alright, so the first thing we have up are the noteworthy releases, and that is Far Cry 5 just came out. So I thought these are going to be, generally speaking, pretty large releases, although if we have some interesting indies or things that have really caught my attention, they're the ones that I'll be focusing on. If you think you found a great game this week, or if I've ever missed one, send it my way and let me know and we'll cover it there. Now, I haven't played Far Cry 5, but I thought something interesting that we could do when we cover the noteworthy releases is to go through what they got on Metacritic, how they're faring at the moment, and just talk about it a little bit, even though I haven't actually played this particular game just yet. So it's got a 76% on Metacritic at the moment. Now, for those who don't know, actually Metacritic is actually a weighted score. So it's actually, let's say IGN might have a higher weight to their score than some smaller unknown website. So I don't typically trust Metacritic too much. I probably should have went with OpenCritic here today, but maybe we'll do that next time. What is interesting though is that this is the PC version, so it's only based on 10 critics. So you might want to get a wider view of the picture and go for the PlayStation version. Obviously it's not going to be entirely representative of the experience on PC, but it's got generally a higher score here, and that's because your big outlets like IGN or Eurogamer or whatever, they're reviewing it on PlayStation or Xbox and console. So there's 67 critics here, so it's a much wider berth of kind of gaming outlets to kind of choose from and see where they're going with it. Now this is the lowest score I've seen, which is a 5 out of from a gaming outlet, I think 5 out of 10. No one's gone into the negative, into the red yet. So generally favorable reviews as well. Then on Steam, it's also got a very positive. It's on 80%, which is pretty good. I haven't personally played this. I have Far Cry 3 and Far Cry 4, and this game just doesn't look like it's too much different. Now, from what the little reviews I've been reading, it's very, very similar. They've added, they've made some decent improvements to mobility and some extra mini games and things like that, and there's a bigger focus on their arcade mode this time around, which was a little story on a little bit later that we'll get to. And that's basically something where you can kind of make your own maps, customize the multiplayer a bit more, and the co-op and stuff seems to be way better. So from what I've heard, the story isn't actually that interesting. They seem to kind of build up the villain as much as they can since Vaas in Far Cry 3, but I don't think they've ever captured the essence of Vaas since Far Cry 3, and it seems like they're kind of chasing that over and over, and they're not really hitting it. The whole kind of Christianity aspect to it really doesn't interest me. I kind of experienced that a lot in Outlast 2, and it kind of feels the same. Even though this might have been in development longer, I don't know. Either way, that's how I feel about it. I probably won't be getting this game, but it does look good. I mean, visually, it just looks absolutely striking. It looks amazing. And the Far Cry 4 looked even amazing just a few years ago, so I can only imagine that this does look pretty close to these screenshots, I would imagine. So yeah, it's definitely one I want to try out, and I think it'd be much more fun to jump in with a friend this time around and see how that all plays out. So that's Far Cry 4. Oh yeah, I did also want to just look at, or Far Cry 5. I just wanted to compare it to Far Cry 4. It's actually just 3% lower than Far Cry 5. So this isn't really an indication of if one's better than the other. Obviously 3% either way, and the fact that this has had 3 years to be reviewed. Jesus, actually, 3 years to be reviewed extra on Steam. So it's got 10,000 more reviews, so take it with a grain of salt, but they seem to be largely the same experience. The next game that did come out as well just recently, it came out on Origin on PC, is A Way Out. And I've actually been playing this. I'm a little bit mixed on it myself. Me and Rosie have been playing it co-op. For those who don't know, it is a co-op based it's kind of a new style of co-op game. It's kind of interesting in a way. You're both on screen at the same time. You can actually play it. I could buy a game, and then if I had you on my friends list, I could just give it to you, and you could play for free, and we could both play through it. It's quite a cool concept to do that. It's quite consumer friendly, I think. So props to EA for doing that. That's the creator of it there. So what it does is it tends to do this like split screen mechanic all the time, where you'll be walking around and the screen will just split, and your screen might even get smaller, theirs might get bigger as the story shifts and focuses on one or the other, because you're not always necessarily in the same place, which is kind of cool. But generally speaking, the puzzles or the co-op elements of the game have been fairly limited from what I've played. The story is kind of interesting, but I've heard that the game isn't that long, and it's not that expensive either though. It's only like $30, but the game's not that long. And it doesn't seem to really challenge us at all. I mean, me and Rosie just been playing it, and we haven't come across anything that's been like in any way difficult. It's kind of like there's always one solution to things, and it's pretty easy to find that solution. So I'm a little bit mixed on it, although I do think it is a good game. It just doesn't seem like a great game, in my opinion. So that's where it's sitting on that. We don't have Steam to look at. It's only based on 8 critics here for the PC version. I think it's on Xbox One as well. Oh, it's on PlayStation 4 and Xbox One. So on Xbox, 80 over there, and on PlayStation, which seems to be where everyone's reviewing it, 80 again. So they seem to think it's in the great category. I would kind of bring it down a little bit. All right, moving swiftly on, we got Sea of Thieves. This is sitting at a fat 6.9 or a 69 on Metacritic. This is reviewed on the PC version, and then the Xbox version itself has received, let's see if it decides to load up. There we go. It's on the 69 as well. Just got to get ahead of that advert. Anyway, so it's on a 69 based on 48 critics. I think largely most people probably know about this by now, but it seems like I haven't played the game, and we've got a few people in our Discord that are hardcore into it and think it's very good, and I'm sure you're able to get that kind of enjoyment out of it. But I think people's expectations were a little bit higher for the kind of stuff you'd be able to do in the game. It seems like from a secondhand experience that mostly once you've kind of played the game for 5 or 6 hours, you've kind of done everything you will be doing in the game, and you're just doing that on a loop with friends. And as long as you're with friends, it could still be quite fun to come across other ships and things like that, but you're not really experiencing anything too different there. So I think largely speaking, you can see by the user score, it's kind of gone down as a mixed game. Some people love being able to just roam around, really free roam, do whatever you want, but other people kind of want a little bit more narrative in there, a little bit more to do in terms of the actual like mainline quests. And I've heard people say like they'd even love to do more stuff like raids where you've got krakens and things like that. It's like, you know, you have to go somewhere to take down a massive boss and things like that. So it just seems a little bit limited in that aspect. So unfortunately it's going to be one I'm missing out on. The interesting thing is though, it's on the Microsoft Store, and if you have Xbox Game Pass, you can play this for free. And if you don't have Xbox Game Pass, you can get a free trial for 2 weeks. So worst case scenario, you get the free trial, you play the game, 2 weeks, bada bing, bada boom. If you don't like it, no problem. Send it back. Just make sure they don't bill you after those 2 weeks. That's where they get you. All right, so moving swiftly on now. We're out of those stories. I think it's time to move on to the Far Cry 5 map editor. So I was talking a little bit Far Cry 5 earlier. Far Cry 5 players have already created Counter-Strike, PUBG, and Call of Duty maps, written by Ben Kuchera over on Polygon. So I just wanted to really quickly point out one of these videos. So the Far Cry 5 map editor seems to be really powerful. I mean, in one day, as of when this was written, in one day, people have made Dust 2. And by the way, this video is Wids. I'm just having a quick look through it. I had a quick look through this video, and it's just like, it is almost one-to-one Dust 2 already within a day. I'm sure they'd make more refinements and stuff to get all of the different peaks and aims right and stuff. But it's kind of incredible. It's like you can see what Dust 2 would look like with good graphics and stuff. So it's really cool. So check out Wids' video if you want to see more about that, and just see him run through the map, kill a few people, see all the different locations. There does seem to be, I've noticed in the different maps, this kind of like foggy haze all the time. Someone else has made a, let's see, this GameFX professional Far Cry player, pro Far Cry player here. There just seem to be, oh yeah, someone's made a PUBG kind of style map. Seems like my internet is just not doing very good at keeping up with this right now. There we go. But you can actually parachute down, do a 5v5, or you can do a 1v, like a free-for-all with 10 people and stuff, and there's loot on the ground and everything. It's actually fairly customizable what you can do. So in terms of its replay value and replayability, if this is kind of stuff that's been come up with in one day, you can imagine there's going to be kind of cool modes and their own kind of Far Cry unique kind of game modes and maps that are going to be worth playing just from the community. So it looks really cool, really powerful map editor, and I wish certain games would allow map editing, which would be really cool because it could like make for much more interesting gameplay and sustained life of the game. But you know, some game companies don't want to do that. Anyway, so that's Far Cry 5. That's all I really wanted to talk about there. It's pretty cool. The game just came out. Let me know if you've got some extra interesting maps or you've seen some interesting things, because I've only really touched on the surface of it, and that's the kind of stuff that honestly gets me more interested in the game at this point. So I'd like to see where that goes. All right, next story is EA is hiring for an open world Star Wars game. Now some people, I'm going to close these other tabs as well real quick. So this is from Game Informer. Jeff Marchiafava has written that EA is hiring for an open world Star Wars game. And this actually originally came from GameSpot, I believe. So the job listing, which is posted on the company's internal jobs board, calls for a lead online engineer to, quote, lead a team to deliver online features for a Star Wars open world project, end quote. The listing says the role will help, quote, ensure designers will maintain high traffic services for multi-platform games. So what I did think was interesting was that over on, oops, I went to the wrong thing. I went to message the guy who wrote it. I meant to go to GameSpot. So there's sources from GameSpot. And I also made a few notes on the GameSpot one. That should pop up in a second. There we go. So Electronic Arts is hard at work on the new open world Star Wars game, if a newly discovered job listing is any indication. So it's because of a job listing on their website, like it said. Weirdly, both their quotes are actually different. And the quote on the website's different. So I don't know who they're quoting, and the website quote itself is different, the job listing. Maybe they're changing it around based on all these articles being written, but anyway, it seems like essentially lead a team to deliver online features for a Star Wars open world project. Experience implementing online features such as matchmaking, asynchronous interactions, live services, server host migration, etc. So the big question is, what kind of game would this be? And this seems like it's obviously Visceral Studios, the creators of Dead Space, owned by EA, got axed, and they were making this game under Amy Hennig, I think might have been the game director or at least lead writer. And that game is no more, and they've moved now to EA Vancouver, and this seems to be the game that's like taken over since then. Now, whether that old game was open world or not, I might be incorrect in assuming it wasn't, but it could have been an open world game. It was definitely a single player narrative focused game, and this seems to be more like Anthem, maybe? Like, I don't know what kind of game this is going to be. This is one of the screenshots from the Visceral Studios thing. It looks quite cool. It just looks amazing because it's like Frostbite. You can't. It's just such a shame EA are the guys making it in a way, because the Frostbite engine is just so cool. You can really imagine getting a really highly polished game set in Star Wars, and an open world one at that will be pretty interesting. I can't really remember one since like maybe Knights of the Old Republic or something that's even close to like an open world style game for Star Wars, but maybe I'm just misremembering. So something interesting along the lines of this is kind of what kind of game are they making then? If it's an online, it needs matchmaking, it has to have server host migration, asynchronous interactions. So this is kind of cool because it means like you might be in an open world. It might be something like almost like a Destiny or an Anthem where people like drop in and drop out, affect the world and then leave, you know, almost in an MMO style of way with that many people, if you know what I mean, per session. So who knows what we'll see. If you guys have any suggestions or any thoughts on what you'd like to see or what you think it might be, let me know in the comments and I'll be reading them as well. I don't know, man. I mean, I personally would have just preferred a single player open world game, but it seems like there's going to be some sort of online. If you could turn that off, I'll be doing it straight away. It could also be something in the vein of Destiny, actually, or not Destiny, The Division. And that might be kind of cool, you know, The Division, where people can kind of explore around an open world together, come across other groups, go to the dark zone, fight each other and things like that. That could be something that they're working on. I know from personal experience that these are the types of games like Destiny, Division, Rainbow Six Siege, all these... I thought they were all Ubisoft there for a sec, but these types of games with these long lifespans and these games of service that make a lot of money are something that companies are super interested in right now, because it's just like there's no end to the potential of these games. It's just money forever. As long as you keep the servers online and you build an infrastructure that doesn't need to be maintained too much, you can just have like 10 people working on the game and just be absolutely raking it in, which we'll get to in a minute. Okay, so that's it for that story. Let's go next to Battletech's release date has been revealed. Now, Battletech is a game I'm quite excited for. I've never actually played the original or the board game. So Battletech is like a completely new franchise to me. But last year at ParadoxCon is when it got revealed. It looked quite cool then. It's kind of like almost in a way XCOM style combat in the fact that it's like this RNG mechanic of going to take a shot, dice roll, see how it plays out, but then you're also trying to hit specific points on their mechs and things like that. So Paradox are the guys publishing this, and it's got a trailer here. We're not going to watch through the whole trailer. I recommend you go check it out. Oh yes, being developed by Harebrained Schemes as well, I meant to mention. But let's just have a little look here, and I'll summarize the trailer.
So today, I ask you to take up my cause, to bring liberty to the oppressed, and deliver justice upon my enemies, to fight for honor. But if honor does not sway your mercenary heart, then let's talk money.
Alright, so that's Battletech. Let's talk money. Pre-order now. What I did think was interesting though, or not interesting really actually, something that people have been saying about the trailer is the story isn't really that important. I think most people are kind of just in it for the gameplay, in it for the tactics. Like you can see here, you've got your different crew members. I think I did a quick video on saying this is one of my most anticipated games of the year. So I look forward to it. You have to position your mechs around differently. The terrain really matters, what you've equipped your specific mech with, and then the story of this is basically there's this some sort of queen who's lost her throne, or she's going after her throne, which is rightfully hers, yada yada yada. It's all just kind of boring stuff. And then it's like you're a mercenary captain, and you can, I guess she's like, oh, like if you're not interested in my cause, like let's talk money or whatever, which is pretty cool. But I don't know if you're actually choosing your allegiance or not. Either way, I don't think this is really that big of a deal for single player people. I think people want to play it. Well, actually, I do want to play it single player, I suppose, but not for the story. I just want to play with the missions, get to know my characters and my squad, and see how it all plays out. So that's something to watch out for. April 24th is when the game comes out. I've requested a review copy from Paradox to see if I can get one, and hopefully I do, and then I'll get you guys a video as soon as I get one. The only thing I think that looks bad is actually the sky, and that's probably because typically you're never really looking at it. You're always looking top down. The sky just looks like nothing in every single like different planet they're on. There's like no clouds, no atmosphere, nothing. It's just like this vacant box. So graphically, when it zooms in and stuff like this, it doesn't look that good, but it's more about the high level gameplay when you're zoomed up like this. This is the normal kind of view that you would have typically. I always find it interesting when these like cinematic artists and things do all these crazy zoom ins. They're trying to tell a story, but the game just doesn't look that good. It's not that kind of game, you know. You can just tell like their creativity is just yearning for something like to be working on a Battlefront game or some sort of first person or an Uncharted or something like that, you know, with really high fidelity graphics. And these guys are just like trying to make the most out of strategy games from a high level that zooming into these like low res models. I feel kind of bad for them. Anyway, so next up on the list is the top revenue for Steam games in 2017. This was revealed at GDC, and this is according to Steam Spy. So that's a very important caveat that we should mention, is that this is according to Steam Spy, and Steam Spy can be a little, basically it polls users. It doesn't always have the complete accurate information, but it gets pretty close, I think is what most people would agree. So the top 100 games on Steam made 50% of the total money in 2017, according to Steam Spy, and of the 7,696 games released in 2017, 0.5% earned half the total cash. So I think journalists are doing a bit of, well, this is written by James Davenport. He's done a fine job. He's just reporting on the news, but journalists in general that I've been reading seem to like play up this, oh, nobody's making money on Steam anymore. GDC like had a lot of talks about it, where it's like developers put out their game and they just don't get any sales, and then all the money goes to the top few. And it's definitely a problem that there's 7,000 games. That's just way oversaturated, like super oversaturated. It's turning into the Apple marketplace. It really is. But a lot of people are like, oh, like these, you don't earn enough money to sustain yourself for a year. Or a lot of these developers wouldn't earn enough money to sustain themselves. But a lot of them don't even make the games. They're not doing it full time. And a lot of them aren't even doing it in more than like 3 or 4 months. for the majority of those small games, they're using like assets that are already made, pre-made engines, all this stuff. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. It's just that the story seems to be a bit skewed. It's like, oh, nobody can make money on Steam, where it's like actually like probably like 90% of those games are just games that are being made really quickly and aren't relying on money as the sole income, I think. Now that is just anecdotal and conjecture on my part, but just from browsing the front page of Steam, these are games that, and like, I know how to make games. These are games that are being made very, very quickly, and nobody is like putting their livelihood on the line for like most of the games I'm seeing here. I'm sure there are games where people have put their livelihoods on the line and they're not getting the visibility they require, and then that's probably affected them as well, and that sucks for sure. Now what's interesting here is that they listed the winners, or Steam Spy listed the winners in terms of revenue earned. Now this, I kind of felt like this is a bit of a non-story in a way, because Steam already put out their best of 2017 list, and we've got that list, and I'll have a look at it now. I've done a whole video on it listing the top games by revenue in 2017, and I actually genuinely feel that my list is more accurate, and I've used Steam Spy to kind of figure that out, but I've used Steam Spy to poll the amount of people in games, and it's pretty close to what they've got on here. So we've got PUBG, obviously, coming up top, 600 million. Counter-Strike, GTA 5. Interestingly, the first PC game is Counter-Strike. Obviously, that's always just been like a titan. But then the next one is Sid Meier's Civ 6. Now, Civ 6 released the year before, so the fact that it sold 1.1 million copies and made 39 million revenue, and this is not counting any DLC, and that's a huge point. This doesn't count DLC. The fact that it made 39 million, didn't even release a game that year, is pretty huge. Now, for comparison's sake, we've got The Witcher 3 selling 1.8 million, but only making 38 million, and that's because of sales. So you can see that even though this game is on sale, it's still a juggernaut of raw revenue. Then we make our way down. We've got a little interesting entry here. Total War Warhammer 2, 643,000 copies by 2017. I think it's gone up since then. And it made 32 million. Now, the thing that I found most interesting about this was that this is a brand new release, and it made 32 million in 2017, okay? In 3 months, it made 32 million. Came 9th in 2017, according to Steam Spy. But Steam Spy doesn't track DLC. What did track DLC and revenue earned were the top sellers list. It's a bit of a bad name here, but the top 100 games as measured by gross revenue. What's interesting here is Total War Warhammer 1, a 2016 game, came gold in 2017 for revenue. And we know that, where is it? Warhammer 2 was in the silver category. So basically, because I'm probably going off track a little bit here, Warhammer 1 made more money than Warhammer 2 in the same year, and Warhammer 1 didn't even release that year. It also didn't feature on this list like the way The Witcher 3 did, so we know it's not sales doing it, and that means it's DLC. Majority of it is DLC revenue, earned more than $32 million. DLC. I mean, I'm sure there's sales and stuff that helped that along, but the sales didn't even bring it anywhere into this top 20 list for revenue at all of Total War Warhammer 1. So either Steam Spy's got their list wrong, or DLC is actually selling just that well. And the other interesting caveat to this is, how many DLCs did Warhammer 1 make in 2017? It made 1, and it made Norska. And the Norska pack was a pre-order tie-in for Warhammer 2. Now, if you pre-ordered Warhammer 2, that sale counts for Warhammer 2, not for Warhammer 1. So these are standalone sales of Norska, and obviously all the back catalogue of DLC and sales that have elevated Warhammer 1 beyond Warhammer 2 in terms of sales. So the reason, obviously, people know my history with Total War. I'm not just focusing on it because of that, but just because I've been able to keep an eye on it, it has meant that I can now show or talk about just a fact that's been totally overlooked on Steam Spy, is that these games make an absolute killing on DLC. I'm sure it's not just Total War. I'm sure it's all of these games. Rocket League. The next one I looked at was like Resident Evil 7 and Assassin's Creed. These games barely even have DLC, but I'm sure any game that does have DLC, like Sid Meier's Civ 6, they're just making all their bank on DLC, microtransactions, obviously, with like CSGO and stuff. 12 million copies of CSGO. It's unbelievable. But anyway, just thought it was worth pointing out that these games are making bank. And it's like the winners, top 10. It's like you don't even have games that are prequels that made more money. So I don't know. I just thought it was a weird list the way these games don't seem to be taken into account at all. Like the top sellers as by revenue, and they're not even like Warframe's not even up here. So how is this list anything to go by? You know, this Steam Spy list. Warframe's obviously made all its money from in-game microtransactions. So the winners by revenue is probably Dota 2, Warframe, and a few other games. But they're not even listed. So just wanted to debunk that a little bit. So the next story we have then, which one are we on now? I think we're on 6. 2 more to go. Is XCOM meets stealthy RPG in the seriously cool Mutant Year Zero Road to Eden. I've never heard of this game until I read this story, and the story is written by Wes Fenlon over on PC Gamer. And I'll link all of these articles in the description so you guys can read them in full. But XCOM plus Howard the Duck is the bizarre pitch of this game. Plus stealth, plus about 30 years of RPG heritage pulled from a Swedish pen and paper game called Mutant, that first debuted in 1984. So I hadn't heard of any of this. Basically, the premise is genetically mutated animals and humans are scavenging and fighting to survive in the post-apocalypse. Pretty weird. I'm not a big fan of like cartoony and aesthetics and things like that. But the fact that it's actually got a bit of a dark aesthetic is what's got me most interested. So it reminds me of Wasteland 2 in the fact that it's an RPG first and then XCOM 2 or XCOM Combat after. And that's very similar to Wasteland. Wasteland's like one of my game of the years for the year it came out, I think in 2014. Just a fantastic game, and this game looks to kind of capture the essence of that. You've got a party, you're walking around, interacting with people, and then you get into XCOM style combat, cover-based combat. The weird thing is I haven't seen any kind of grids yet, but maybe it's there, I don't know. So in combat, everything feels very XCOM, down to the 2-chunk movement system. Overwatch is a skill, and equipable secondary weapons like grenades. But mutations, the game's perk system, offer a fun alternative to a rigid skill tree. And that's pretty much it. Mutant Year Zero might be the first strategy game I've seen built in Unreal Engine 4, and even the Dark Forest map I saw demoed looked gorgeous. It's out this year, which hopefully means we'll get to see more of its story and exploration in the near future. Oh, there's actually a grid here. I must have missed this GIF. So yeah, that's basically it. Very XCOM 2. There's a lot of XCOM 2 style gameplay coming up. I keep saying XCOM 2, just XCOM style gameplay doing the rounds lately. Okay, next story. Boom. Iron Harvest has reached its Kickstarter funding goal. This is on my top anticipated games of 2018 list. Essentially, the conversion button isn't working right now, but it's trying to hit its stretch goal of $1 million, which is getting pretty close to. It's got 10,000, almost 11,000 backers as of the time of recording. And basically, if you don't know this game, a super high-level pitch is, oh, here we go, with epic single-player campaign set in the alternate reality of 1920. It's basically, from what I've seen, it's kind of coming across as a company of heroes with mechs. And that's basically it. It's Company of Heroes with mechs in World War I era. So that's essentially the game. It looks pretty cool. Let's have a look. So they've gone, base game and campaigns have been done, new game plus, cinematic cutscenes, challenge maps, skirmish mode, and they're working towards getting that multiplayer in. So it's actually a single player focused RTS. And another interesting aspect is they seem to have a focus on tactics is greater than clicks per second. Iron Harvest gives you time to come up with a plan and allows for a wide range of tactics, including stealth. So they're trying to emphasize it doesn't have to be all about the micro, because it's a single player focused RTS, and then they're going to try and add competitive multiplayer to it, rather than these games that kind of go, well, we're going to try and be a competitive multiplayer game first and then bomb out like Dawn of War or whatever it may be. So I think making a good game first, designed for single player with good mechanics, and then extracting interesting multiplayer out of it is how most good multiplayer games have started, or a lot anyway. So you've got 3 playable factions with a 40 unit type, 3 single player campaigns with an overarching story, 21 missions, single player and co-op, competitive multiplayer, and free DLC and updates. This is obviously depending on the results of the Kickstarter, but that's what they're aiming to have. And it looks like they're going to get to multiplayer. Hopefully they get to a co-op campaign. So you should maybe consider backing this if you want to. I think we're just on update number 8, halftime game design goals. They've gone into this a little bit here. But essentially, they've just said that as of today, we're officially in the second half of our Kickstarter. Needless to say, the first half has been excellent. We're going to hit 1 million this Saturday. There should be so they talk about the rules and the design philosophy behind the game, which is pretty cool. Rules have to matter. A rule like if you attack from an elevated position, you make 5% more damage isn't worth it. If you double your damage and kill an enemy instantly, it might be worth a try. I'm loving the fact that they said that, because a lot of strategy games I've played recently, they are these tiny little incremental buffs. They expect you to keep track of everything, and then everything is supposed to mount up in the late game and stuff. I hate that. It's not tangible. It doesn't feel like it makes a difference, but something that clearly makes a difference. You know, a 5% buff isn't really going to make a difference, especially it's barely noticeable. But something that you activate and does make a difference feels rewarding when you do it, and the timing is then much more important, and the placement and the positioning. And they also say there should be as few rules as possible and as few exceptions from these rules as possible. So it's pretty interesting. Players will need to assess the situation, explore all possibilities, come up with a plan, and execute the plan. So that's pretty much it for Iron Harvest. And our very last story then, by the way, that's on Kickstarter. It's got a few days to go, 15 days to go, 2 weeks. It can still be funded if they reach that 1.1 million. I'd love to have that co-op campaign in there, so consider backing it. And then the last story of the day is going to be Thrones of Britannia release date change. This is a little bit of an old story, but I thought I would just throw it in there as a kind of a catch-up thing, because obviously of my affiliation with Total War and just how I enjoy the series. I thought it'd be worth talking about. A lot of people ask me about it, so it's one that's worth talking about. For those who don't know, basically this game's just been delayed 2 weeks. We'd like to, let's just increase the zoom. We'd like to buy ourselves a bit more time for the final push, so we've made the call to nudge the release date back by 2 weeks from April 19th to May 3rd. Perhaps the biggest area we're focusing on is battle. We're making some improvements to the AI's flanking behavior, and we're addressing the way AI targets enemy units to better account for intervening units blocking charge pathways. On top of that, we're making a whole raft of alterations to numerous aspects of battle, including, but not limited to, collision damage, unit stats, maximum drag out width, collision radii, unit mass, and spacing. So this is all pretty good news in general. I think largely from the feedback from their event that they held, where we got to see the gameplay for the first time. A lot of people were saying it looks a lot like Attila. Battle seemed to be really rigid. Collision seems kind of bad. You know, it's kind of the same as it was in Attila. Warhammer's made huge strides in that regards over Attila. I think Warhammer's battles are excellent and a lot of fun, and I think they could translate back to a historical setting in a really good way, with some of the kind of the way collision works, the way the animations all handle with kind of unit to unit matching and stuff like that. I think it's like really good in Warhammer. So it doesn't seem like we're getting that, because this game is clearly built from a different game. It's built from Attila, and that doesn't have all those improvements into it. But it looks like they're trying to improve that. 2 weeks, not going to make a difference in my opinion. Because you got to make all these changes and then QA it. It's just not enough time. It looks like they're going into the database and just trying to tweaking things to make it a little bit better, and hopefully it will be a bit better, but it's not going to be the changes I think people are really hoping for, which is bring in that Warhammer collision, bring in those Warhammer charges, and then add the formations from the historical titles on top of it, and you get yourself a really interesting mix, hopefully. So that's my take on that. I'm not too excited about this game, but I will be playing it and I will stream it at the time, and I'll hopefully be able to review it as well. So that's going to be it for my news show. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Let me know what you think in the comments below. This one went on a bit longer than I'd expected, but as it was the first one, I had to explain some things, and I think I may have dwelled on 1 or 2 stories a bit too long, but hey, I'm learning as I go. So give me that feedback. I really do appreciate it. Comments, tweets, whatever it may be, it can all be found in the description along with the news stories, and I'll feature some comments next time as well. And yeah, I appreciate all your feedback. Let me know. Also, if you got an idea for the name of the show, that'd be good. Republic of Play News is probably just fine, but I was thinking maybe something like The Forum or something like that, something a bit Roman themed, but not too hard to search on YouTube as well. And that's going to be pretty much it. Hope you guys have a great week, and I'll see you next week, next Thursday, for the next Republic of Play News. Bye.